Hey, I'm Stephanie Spicer, and I'm a Limey. I'm not a doctor or medical professional. These videos are just one Limey sharing my thoughts and experiences with another. There's a huge overlap between Lyme disease symptoms and mold sensitivity symptoms. One time when I was visiting my parents' home for Christmas break, I was waking up every day with a huge migraine. I told my mom that I suspected that it could be caused by mold, and she told me that they had had problems with mold in that room in the past. She cleaned the wall behind the bed with bleach, and after that I had no more problems with migraines for the rest of my trip. I remember hearing something once that has always stuck with me. Everyone has mold in their home. So why is it that most people don't seem to get sick from mold, while others, including Lymies, are really sensitive to it? We don't have all the answers, but here's what we do know. Lymies seem to have less capability to handle mold or to process out mold toxins, possibly because our immune systems are already overwhelmed with fighting Lyme, and possibly because the Lyme toxins are tied up in biofilms created by Lyme and its co-infections. Living in a moldy environment can delay or prevent you from recovering from Lyme disease. Some people who have seemed to recover from Lyme disease have relapsed when they've been exposed to molds. So what should you do if you have Lyme disease and you also know that you have a mold problem in your home? Well, move if you can to a place that doesn't have one. Get out as fast as you can. The last apartment that I lived in had a serious mold problem. I was constantly finding mold in new places and frantically trying to keep up with cleaning it. But it would just sprout back again almost immediately. I could feel it in my body too. It was driving me crazy. I ended up basically fleeing from that apartment to get a fresh start in one that has a bathroom window. But I know not everyone can do that. At the very least, you will need to clean out the mold from your home. This can be very difficult for a sick person, so you may need professional help. And be aware that even if you clean up visible mold, there may be more hiding in places that you wouldn't expect or don't have access to. To keep mold from coming back, make sure that you have good airflow from outside. Open windows and doors as much as possible. Make sure to let out excess moisture after you shower or bathe. Take out the garbage often. Don't let organic matter sit around. Clean appliances like coffee makers soon after you use them. Remove clothes from the washing machine directly after washing and make sure that they're completely dry before putting them away. The reason I've given these suggestions is because even though they're really basic, they don't seem to be obvious in our modern society. I can't tell you how many times I walk into a building, even a home, and it smells like the windows haven't been open for years. Or pass a person in the street and get smacked in the face by a cloud of moldy air. That makes me wonder how that person can survive walking around in a prison of poison all day. We've become so detached from nature that such fundamental ideas as exposing ourselves, our homes, and our clothing and bedding to fresh air and sunshine no longer constitute basic common sense. However, since I wrote the first draft of this script, I've looked a little bit deeper into this issue, and I've realized that for some situations, the suggestions I've made might not be enough. It's interesting to note that Brian Rosner, who's written some of the most important books about Rife machines and Lyme disease treatment, has now shifted his focus to mold avoidance. He and others suggest more extreme measures for those suffering from mold illness, such as taking a mold avoidance sabbatical, completely removing yourself from a moldy environment, including replacing all your possessions. They also point out the dangers not only of indoor molds, but of outdoor ones that are prolific in areas polluted by sewage, industrial waste, and fire retardants. So avoidance can extend to entire cities and regions, not just indoor spaces. I'm going to put some links in the description for those facing intense mold problems who might like to try this more extreme version of mold avoidance. They're worth looking into. But if you can't move or do a whole sabbatical, I would encourage you to at least go on a camping trip if you can. Get away from your home and spend some time as close to nature as possible. See if it makes a difference in how you feel. If it does, that may be a sign that you should look into this issue more comprehensively. And also, camping is just really fun and refreshing. A couple of years ago, I hiked the Camino de Santiago, a pilgrimage trail that goes through the north of Spain. It wasn't a big spiritual experience for me like I've heard others describe it, but one thing that I did notice was that even though each day was unpredictable and often uncomfortable and I wasn't eating particularly well, I didn't have one single headache during the entire 11-day hike. We won't always be able to avoid everything that makes us feel ill. Ultimately, we need to eradicate the reason that it makes us feel ill. But in order to accomplish that, we may need to take a break from a toxic environment rather than just trying to get well in it. Just like we may need to go on a sugar fast to break a sugar addiction before starting to eat more healthy. Our bodies may even seal up their own detox pathways while we're living in a moldy environment, because opening them up means letting those toxins in. I can personally say that I've made some significant steps towards healing since leaving my old apartment, even in symptoms like depression that I wouldn't necessarily associate with mold illness. My body has definitely been dumping toxins, and until recently, I don't think I understood how much of this was simply because I was living in a better environment. A body burdened by Lyme disease cannot handle mold, but neither can it heal from Lyme while burdened by mold toxicity. We can't fight one monster without facing the other.